All right. We are very excited to have a visit with Gale Galligan today. Gale is a cartoonist and illustrator who has worked on the very popular graphic novel adaptations of the Babysitters Club books, including some of the classics like Kristy's Big Day and Boy Crazy Stacey. Gale is going to talk about graphic novels. She'll do an art demonstration and answer some audience questions at the end. So if you have any questions, just enter them into that little Q&A box at the bottom. Everybody attending today is entered into a drawing to win a free copy of a Babysitters Club graphic novel, and we will contact the winners on Monday. Today's program will also be recorded and we're going to host it on our YouTube channel later. So if you know anybody who wanted to attend today and couldn't make it, they could just catch up later. So now I'm going to turn it over to our guest, Gale Galligan. Yay!
Hello, thank you for having me. Hi, I'm Gale Galligan. I am the cartoonist behind four Babysitters Club graphic novel adaptations. Today, I would like to talk to you about how I make comics, tell you a little bit about myself, do some drawing, and then answer questions. So, like previously mentioned, if you think of anything while I'm talking, please drop it into the chat and we'll try to get to it at the very end. So let's get started. I will share my screen. I've got a fun little presentation for you. So, hi again, I'm Gale Galligan. I have done these Babysitters Club graphic novel adaptations. I am talking to you live from Pleasantville, New York, where it is 7 p.m. I am a fun, exciting person with colorful hair, so I'll never be able to rob a bank without being noticed. Don't worry about it. I have always been very fun, cool, and stylish, as evidenced here by photos of my childhood. One fun thing about me is I grew up a bit all over the place because of my parents' jobs. We moved around a bit when I was young. So on the left, you can see a photo of me and my sister in Bangkok, Thailand, with a bona fide Thai pop star. I still don't know who he was. In the top middle, you can see my family in Frankfurt, Germany, where we spent a few years. And then after that, we moved to a mysterious land known as Northern Virginia, where I went to middle and high school. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. But that's kind of what my life was like growing up. We moved around, and I found a lot of comfort in the constants in my life. For me, that was my family, my beloved stuffed animal, and reading. I read so much. I would go to the library morning, noon, and night during lunch break. Again, very, very cool and fun child. But I loved getting lost in all kinds of stories, especially stuff like Tamora Pierce's books, the Animorphs series, of which there are graphic novels now, and books by Diana Wynne Jones, who wrote Howl's Moving Castle, if you've ever watched that. So those were some of my favorites, but I also really liked the Babysitters Club because, fun fact, this was a series of prose books, written books that were coming out when I was a kid, when I was your age. So I was a huge fan. I got through as many of those as I could borrow from the library. And I think it's just so cool that I get to talk to you about something that I loved so much growing up. And now you hopefully enjoy too. It's really, really cool. So I loved to read and I loved comics. My dad would get the newspaper every day, and I would run over and like just snatch the comics, the funny pages. No news for Gale. I really wanted to read those comics, and he'd go like, "No, I wanted those too." No, they're mine now. So I love stuff like Calvin and Hobbes, Garfield, with whom I share a birthday, The Far Side, and all of these things I was absolutely in love with. And I would try to draw my own interpretations. So like I was reading books, I was reading comics, and I wanted to do my own fun, funny stories. So here's an example of that. This is from a series I worked on called Fluff and Tough, about two bunnies who got into all sorts of adventures. You can tell which is which because Tough has cool, spiky ears, meaning that he's tough. So that was what I was up to. I would try to draw funny comics. I'd show them to the people in my life. If they laughed, it felt like I was on top of the world. And I got, really addicted to that feeling. So I kept on drawing, And then something really interesting happened. Anime became really popular in the United States. When I hit my tween years in the early 2000s, all of a sudden, I could turn on my TV and watch stuff like Sailor Moon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Inuyasha, Pokemon, Digimon, Cardcaptor Sakura, all of it, all of a sudden beaming to my very own home. Stories that I'd never gotten to watch before about people with magical powers joining together to fight evil or play card games or become stronger together than they were apart. People like me, people around my age. This was something that was really, really exciting. And that started showing up in my work too. I drew so much fan art, so much fan art. I would draw Pikachu, I would draw Yu-Gi-Oh, I would like make all this stuff, right? And then show it to my friends because they were watching these shows too. And because it was something they already liked, we could connect over it. You can kind of see the theme here where I would go, I want to draw this thing so that I can show it to people and we can share an experience. I can say, I like this, you like it too, or I can make you laugh. This was really, really fun and exciting for me. So I kept on drawing, I kept on doing that, and it started finding its way into my original work as well. I still remember when my sister and I were watching Sailor Moon, our neighbors were too, and we got Razor scooters one holiday as a gift. We started all scooting around the neighborhood using our magic powers to fight evil. And we came up with these really fun original characters. I had psychic powers, my sister had water powers, the neighbors had like angel and fire powers. What is angel? Don't worry about it. But I would go home after those adventures and draw everything we had just done in comic form. So that's what you're seeing here. I would draw comics based on the things that we did, the cool attacks that we yelled on our Razor scooters. And the next day, I would show them to my sister and the neighbors. And because it was about them, they legally had to like it. More validation, more being able to share with people and learning and growing and practicing and drawing more and more and more comics. And so I kept on doing that. I would draw autobiographical comics about taking school tests. I would draw comics about going to college, about my boyfriend, about original ideas, and then the Babysitters Club. And you can see how my work kept on growing and changing as I kept on taking in new and different stories, watching different movies, reading different books, the entire world around me as I took stuff in and practiced and drew so much. Everything I took in was informing the work that I made. And I think it's really cool that I get to say that's still happening today. You don't just stop learning and growing. On the left is one of the very first drawings I made of the Babysitters Club when I tested for the series, where I said, here's what it would look like if I drew these characters. And on the right is something I drew a few years in after I had gotten more used to what I really wanted them to look like. So you can see how even then, so recently, my style was still shifting and growing. And I really hope that that's still the case, 10, 20, 30 years from now, because I love to draw, I love to learn, and I love making comics. So now I'm going to tell you very quickly how I make comics. This, again, is a thing that changes and grows with me as I figure out what works for me. But for the Babysitters Club, it's a graphic novel based on a book that already exists. So the first thing I have to do, surprise, is read the book. I read it once for pleasure as a fan, and then I read it again with an author's sensibility. Like, how would I adapt this book? If I were going to describe it to a friend, what would I have to keep in so that it felt like this same book? So I'm reading it again with that in mind. I'm circling stuff, I'm underlining it, I'm making little notes to myself like, oh, when Stacey sees a cute lifeguard, it's gonna be really fun to draw, stuff like that. So I'm reading it again, like thinking, I need to draw this. I don't understand this. We'll figure this out. I'm making all these notes for myself. And then I write it all down in something that's called an outline. This is basically an essay about the entire book I'm going to make, because drawing takes a lot of time. Graphic novels take a lot of work. And if you start drawing a graphic novel from scratch, you might get halfway through and realize the story isn't working. You want to throw everything else, just crumple it out, boop, graphic novel gone. By writing an outline first, just beginning, middle, end, here's exactly what happens in the book in a very boring and straightforward way, I can kind of give myself a little roadmap so that I don't get lost halfway through. Things will still change and evolve, but at least I have an idea of where I want to go. So I write this, I send it to my editor, and we talk about it. And she comes back with these great notes and ideas like, hey, I see what you're going for here, but if we move this part earlier, it'll be more dramatic. Or like she'll ask questions when she doesn't understand things. And this is something that you can do with other people in your life too, whether that's a friend, a family member, just someone whose opinion you value. You can always share stuff with them and say, hey, what do you think? And even if you don't always agree with their feedback or you don't take all of it, the questions they ask might give you ideas to make your story even stronger. And I think that's really cool. So I write the outline, I get notes, I fix it up. Once we have something we're all happy with, I write a script just for myself. Not everybody does this. Some people go right into drawing. I personally find it helpful just to have words down first. That's just how my brain works. So on the very left, you can see a part of that outline I told you about, just a few short sentences. The girls get some snacks and talk about their summer plans. That's it. That becomes 2 full comic pages once I've scripted everything out. And that's a big part of adapting a graphic novel for me, is thinking, okay, I have 200 pages to work with. What are the important events and how many pages do each of them really need? Maybe I want something that's super dramatic to spread across several pages or be a whole huge like drawing just on one page. Maybe something that is less important or can go more quickly needs to compress even smaller. So these are things I'm thinking about when I'm writing a comic. Once I have my script done just for me, I get to draw it. And this is the comic version of a script. It is called thumbnails because they're usually, physically very small. The idea is, again, comics take time to draw, right? If I started drawing everything perfect and beautiful, like the most glorious eyelashes Claudia's ever had, I could get partway through, realize it wasn't working for me, and want to crumple it up and throw it away. So with thumbnails, I'm going really sketchy. I'm doing even as simple as stick figures. I just want to make sure that I know where everybody is, where all the words are, and that I read everything in order. So I send this to my editor next. She reads through it. Sometimes she says, is this blob supposed to be Kristy? And I have to say, yes, thank you. I'll label her next time. But it's really, really helpful because she gets to come back to me and say, hey, like, this doesn't quite flow as well as you want it to. Like, I feel like if you did this, people would really want to turn to the next page. So these are the things we're thinking about when we're just roughing out the comic. I get my notes, I fix up the thumbnails really quickly because again, I haven't drawn them really fancy. And then I get to the fun part of drawing. So I rough stuff out. I think about how I want my characters to act, how close or far I want the camera to be for maximum drama. And then I tighten up those roughs. In the looser roughs, I'm thinking more about acting and kind of how everything wants to feel. In my tighter roughs, I want to make sure that I'm actually thinking about stuff like anatomy, proportions, perspective, just making everything look a little bit more right than it was before. And I don't do this all in my own mind. I use reference. I use so much reference. I take so many selfies. It is so nice that I get to work from home where nobody can see me doing this. Because as we learn and grow and draw, we build up an internal visual library of all this stuff that we know how to draw from memory, right? But people do things differently. If you threw a basketball and then you ask your friend to do the same thing, they do it a different way. Maybe their arm would go off more to the side. Maybe their wrist would flick a little bit more than yours. But if you ask somebody to help you out, if you say, hey, could you do this for me? And you take a picture, you might notice that little motion that'll help give you even more interesting character acting that you might not have thought of on your own. So I love taking selfies, especially when I have to draw hands because they're very complicated. I tighten up my roughs, I pencil everything in, and pencils are different for everybody. They're basically a blueprint that says, here are the final lines you're going to need to make your finished inked lines over. Some people pencil very roughly because they just need an idea to ink over, but I have a very bad memory. If I don't draw somebody's earrings, I'm gonna forget they're there. So I'm really just saying, here are the details you need to remember when you're inking. So then, until this point, I have been doing everything you've seen digitally. I've been typing digitally, I've been sketching digitally on my computer. But now that we've gotten to the inking part, I print out my pencils. I print them out on a really big sheet of 11 by 17 paper and then put it over a light box. It's like when you kind of like hold your paper up to trace by a window. And so that I can just ink over those lines and have something really clean and finished at the end. Not everybody does this, not everybody has to do this, but it's something that I found works for me. So what I'm doing here, as you can see, is I'm using mostly a G pen. This is a dip pen, so you have to dip it in ink over and over and over again. But when you do that and you press down on the paper, If you press hard, a thicker line comes out, and if you press lightly, a thinner line comes out. So you have a little bit of flexibility. You can make really cool lines. And I find that that just works for me personally. That's something I really like. So I use that. I use a big brush to fill in big areas of shadow. I use a lot of whiteout because I make so many mistakes. And that's kind of my entire inking process. This is a part where I get to zone out, listen to a podcast, catch up on, you know, anime, because all my thinking is done. I'm really just putting down my lines, thinking about shadow, thinking about how to make it pretty, and having a good time. I find inking very calming and fun. And now that I've done that, I am going to go to the next slide. This is what it ends up looking like. This is a finished inked page. I've scanned it in, I've cleaned it up, I've fixed all of my mistakes so you'll never see them, but something's missing, isn't there? I add my letters digitally. I could ink all of my balloons at the same time as I'm inking everything else. But if we realize, halfway through that we want to change some words, or maybe they want to translate the book way later down the line, it'd be really hard to have to fix up all of the art to make the balloons change. This way, since they're on a separate layer on top of the art, just lying on top of it, it's much easier to just move stuff around, kind of like you have two sheets of plastic on top of each other. And that's how I letter the comic. And then my part is actually done because the Babysitters Club has this amazing person whose job it is, whose sole entire job it is, just to color the graphic novel. I send my inks off to Brayton Lamb, our amazing colorist, and he looks at the inks and he looks at the story and thinks, okay, what time of day is it? What is the mood of the scene? Is there anything I have to point out to the reader that I really want to make sure they see? He thinks about all this stuff and then puts down colors that help convey the mood of the story, that help tell you what you should be feeling or what you should be seeing. And he does it so beautifully. Like, I love getting to get these pages back and say, oh my gosh, these look amazing. I get to praise them because I'm not the only person who worked on this book. Comics can be so collaborative. And that's one of my favorite things about them, is just getting to team up with other people, kind of like Sailor Moon. It's so much fun. So if you do that over and over and over again, for maybe 200 pages over the course of a year and a half, you end up with an entire graphic novel. That is my presentation. Hello. So what I'm going to do now is kind of share my screen and doodle a little bit. And if you want to start throwing questions my way, I will be more than happy to talk while I draw. Hello. So this is a program I use called Clip Studio. It is not the only drawing program out there. It's just one that I found happens to work for the type of things I want to do. Here we go. So I'm just kind of getting loose, getting warmed up. You can see that I'm drawing just little lines over this head that I'm drawing. That's kind of to tell me where my nose is, where my eyes are, where the head is pointing. I'm thinking of it kind of like a sphere in 3 dimensions. And so if you think of it that way, then you can rotate it and get an idea of where all the different bits are. Like, you can tell here the eyes will be here the eyes will be here, stuff like that. So that's kind of how I start sketching stuff out.
All right, Gale, I'm going to start asking some questions from the audience. All right, so Tiffany V would like to say, first off, like you were inspired to draw by anime, I am inspired to draw from you.
Oh my God, I can't cry on camera. Thank you.
She also has a question. Yeah. A lot of people asked what inspired you, but I am asking, who would you like to inspire?
Oh my gosh, that's really sweet. Honestly, like, it's hard to imagine inspiring a person just being a person who is inspired by so many things. Like, if I can even just like make someone's day like a little bit nicer, I'm happy with that. If you tell me I've inspired you, that's more than I could ever have asked for. So thank you.
Okay, and Piper would like to know, how long does it take to draw a graphic novel?
This is a question that every cartoonist you ask will answer differently. So don't feel bad or weird if your own answer is different. For me personally, that answer is about a year and a half, give or take, for the Babysitters Club graphic novels. The thumbnails and script that you saw take me about 3 months usually. And then everything after that is editing and drawing. Lots and lots and lots of drawing. But again, that's different for everybody. I know some people take 10 years, some people take 6 months. I don't understand 6-month people.
Okay. Next question is from Jasleen. She would like to know, when you are done with a book and you've published it already, do you start your new book?
That is a fun question. The answer is yes, although I do try to take like a week off to just lie down and play a video game. Making a book can be it can be emotional, and it can like get a little bit difficult towards the end, where you're like, you can see the finish line and you're racing towards it. So once you're done, you kind of feel like have you ever like run a race or like had played tennis or something, and you finish a really long game? You're just like, I need to lie down and just take a moment for me. That's kind of what finishing a book feels like. So after just like a quick break, then I'll get back into it. Yeah.
Great. We have a question from an anonymous who says, I love your books. I was wondering if the pics in the beginning, were they yours? Did you draw them?
Yes. All of the drawings you saw, except for the comics like Garfield and Farside, those are drawings that I made when I was quite
young. Okay. Piper would like to know, what is your favorite part of the whole process?
Oh, Piper, thank you for asking. This will vary like depending on what part of the process I'm actually in, because I like different things about each part of it. But as it goes on, it can get a little bit frustrating sometimes. Like when I'm halfway through penciling a book and I feel like I haven't finished anything in a while, like I haven't inked something and made it look done, then I start saying, oh, I hate pencils, but it starts off feeling really good. I think overall, my favorite part is usually inks, just because that's a part where I get to hold up a page and say, oh, hey, like this is done. I can't believe I did this whole thing. It feels very good. So inking is probably the most satisfying, personally.
Okay. Sasha says, you said you were inspired to draw by anime, and so was I. What do you think is the best way to practice your drawing?
Sasha, that's a great question. Okay, I'm going to turn off my doodling for a moment and just look directly into the camera. Hello. The best way to practice drawing is number one, draw. I feel like, especially at the age you probably are, it can get really easy to start saying, oh gosh, like these drawings aren't as good as I want them to be. I can see all the mistakes. It feels bad. I should just stop. Don't stop. Keep on drawing. The best thing you can do for your drawing is to keep on doing it. And remembering that the reason you feel bad about it and can see all the mistakes is because your hand hasn't quite caught up to where your brain is yet. You've been observing and learning all of this stuff, and now you just need to practice and catch up. And so as you keep on going, you look back, you'll keep on realizing you're improving the whole time. As for tips when you're working on your drawing, for me personally, I find it really helpful to be thoughtful, to observe stuff, to say, okay, if I'm reading a comic and I'm really enjoying it, I'm going to ask myself why. Like, what about it is working for me? What do I really love? What can I steal for myself? Or if I don't like it, why? What would I do differently? What about it isn't working? How would I fix it? Like, just taking the time to interrogate stuff, to say, I like this, I would like to try it myself. That's how all artists learn and grow, as they keep on pulling from all these different places. That's not just comics, that's the entire world around you. You're taking in so many things, even as you walk, as you move down the street. It's really, really cool. Just please keep practicing and enjoying what you do. Do stuff you enjoy.
Okay. Vivian is just curious, why did you color your hair? I love it.
Thank you. Thank you for asking. Honestly, it's fun. I really love being able to just say, hey, like this is my hair. I can do what I want with it. And I like looking in the mirror and just going like, Nice. I really enjoyed this. Kind of like Claudia. I feel like it's an expression of just what I'm interested in, like how I want people to see me, and being able to like take some control over that. I personally find fun.
Okay, do we have time for one more question? Let's go with Anonymous. Which Babysitters Club character do you think you relate to the most?
Oh, this is a fun one because I feel like often people say, "What's your favorite character?" But which one you relate to is a slightly different question. Because I would love to say I'm a Claudia. You know, I got the fun shirt, I got the fun hair, but I think internally, I often relate to Mary Anne a lot, and that's why it was really fun working on Logan Likes Mary Anne because she has this whole big scene where she gets really nervous at a big party, right? That's me in a nutshell. You know, I was very awkward growing up. I was very nervous growing up. Like talking to people was very scary. It's still a little bit scary. I'm getting better at it, but I completely understood growing up when I read Marianne's books. I said, you know, oh, I feel this way. So I also got to see her learn and grow across the course of the books and become more confident talking to her friends and confronting the grown-ups in her life. And that was really useful for me to learn as well. So I definitely feel like I related to the piano a lot.
All right, I think that's all of our questions. Thank you so much, Gale. Before we go, I want to let everybody know that we have more upcoming author visits through May. On April 28th, we have Alexis Fajardo, who is the author of The Kid Beowulf. We have Kelly Yang, author of the Front Desk series, on May 7th. So for more information on those events, just go to our website at smplibrary.org. Looks like we have enough copies of the Babysitters Club graphic novels to give a graphic novel to everybody who showed up today. So you
That's so
are
great.
all winners. Congratulations.
Oh my God.
Um, the best way to do this would be if I sent everybody a reminder confirmation email today. So just respond to that email that I sent out with just say, I attended today, and we will coordinate your free copy. So congratulations, you're all winners.
That's awesome.
And thank you again, Gail, and have a great weekend. Thanks everybody for coming out today.
Thanks so much for having me. I hope you all have a super weekend. Thanks again.